The familiar problem of the world of globalism were on full display in the last few days at the talk on climate change, the Asia Pacific Economic Conference, and the effort to strengthen global governance under G20. This world of globalism is unlikely to survive in its present form as Donald Trump prepares to hurl a wrecking ball against it. President elect Donald Trump is not bound by ideologies that once guided US foreign policy. Many of his post war successors, which followed those policies. These include concepts such as liberal internationalism, America's global leadership, the rule based order, and the multiculturalism. The freedom from globalism reinforces Trump's instinct for transactional foreign policy, which is reminiscent of his popular 1987 book, The Art of the Deal. The Trump's deal-making inclination, which was restrained in his first term by mainstream figures from foreign policy establishment, is likely to find full expression in his second term. Pursuing America's proclaimed principle has always been challenging amid real-world complexities and inevitable domestic resistance following initial enthusiasm for foreign policy adventurism. Maintaining ideological purity in a world that demands constant compromises have proven difficult, often inviting inevitable accusation of hypocrisy. By explicitly rejecting these lofty ideals and abandoning the claim that America has a social responsibility to lead the world, Trump frees himself and his administration from past burden. This approach resonates with larger section of Trump's support base who reject globalism and embrace the idea of America first. The strong opposition to globalism also underpins resistance to wars in distant land. It is paradoxical that nationalists and the right wing Trump Republicans now view themselves as the peace party in America. Equally paradoxical is that liberal denounces those on Republican side calling for restraint and peace as Russian asset. The liberal media has long denounced former Congressman Tulsi Gabbard as a Russian proxy. A similar narrative is already emerging against many of Trump's nominees for critical national security posts. Gabbard has been nominated to head the US national intelligence establishment. The accusation of foreign influence and treachery are not exclusive to the right. The American left employs these tactics as well. Trump opposition to war has a flip side, the notion of peace through strength. Though Trump and his supporters advocate peace while insisting on a strong military capable of punishing those who challenges the US, their emphasis on avoiding needless war in the name of broad global objective and leadership claims, but be ready to deploy forces in full measure when needed. Some nominees, however, come from the old school of muscular globalism. The anti war faction in the Republican Party has openly opposed the nomination of former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and former UN envoy Nikki Haley to the senior cabinet position in new administration. Both Pompeo and Haley have been attacked as warmongers of the deep state. There is also apparent unease among some party members regarding the nomination of Senator Marco Rubio as the new Secretary of State and Congressman Mike Waltz as a national security advisor, both of whom have supported the interventionist policy. It is worth noting that all US administration include senior figures with diverse approaches to national security issue, with the president having the final say in determining a particular course of action. On one issue, though, there seems to be a unity. While Trump's domestic coalition broadly opposes deeper involvement in Middle Eastern conflict, there remains unwavering support for Israel and its war against Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. The current policy of total support for Israel is expected to continue under Trump even as he seeks to strengthen his ties with Gulf Arab nations. Trump's transactional diplomacy involves making on demanding deals from both adversaries and allies at global regional level. Countries adapt at hard bargaining skill to give and take are likely to fare well in dealing with Trump administration. Trump's interlocutors will need to adapt to his unconventional negotiation tactics ranging from bold moves to public confrontation. We witnessed this in his dealing with Pakistan and North Korea during his first term. One day he would threaten to bomb Pakistan and North Korea, the next he would host Prime Minister Imran Khan or become the first president to step onto North American soil. Crucially, Trump's transactional approach will be bolstered by America's growing power relative to other nations in international system. Contrary to popular narrative of American decline, the US economy is thriving and its intensifying technological clout is the envy of its rival and friends. Meanwhile, the Eurozone, once comparable to American economy, is now shrinking in comparison. China, previously expected to overtake the US economy by the end of this decade, may not achieve its goal now. However, China's steep demographic decline is exacerbating its economic deceleration. Although, although China, with its GDP approaching 20 trillion and rapid advancement in technological, industrial, and military capabilities, will remain formidable force, its ability to supplement the US as world's leading power is diminishing. Could China build a coalition described these days as axis of autocracies by the Western liberals to challenge US dominance? This seems unlikely given the internal contradiction within any such alliances that would limit the effectiveness of shared anti US sentiment. More significant is the prospect that Trump's transactional diplomacy, focusing on separate deals with coalition members, could weaken potential anti American alliances. Interventionist tends to make sweeping ideological claims such as rolling back communism in Southeast Asia, promotion of democracy in Middle East, and establishing a rule-based order. Joe Biden's framing of global conflict as democracies versus autocracy has led some to envision an America battle against the axis of autocracy that include Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Trump has little patience for such abstraction. His focus on bilateral deals with members of the Axis could, in fact, prevent the consolidation of an autocratic alliance. Trump's transactional approach might enable the US to navigate global politics more effectively than his predecessors, who often allowed ideology to overshadow pragmatic policy making. Trump's deal making focus, even from a position of strength, does not necessarily guarantee smooth sailing. In any negotiation, the other party, even a weak one, has a vote. A deal with Russia, for instance, must satisfy Vladimir Putin without compromising Americans' European allies. As Trump's team discusses ending the war in Ukraine, Putin is working to consolidate his military position before Trump takes office. Biden, with 9 weeks left before handing over to Trump, is complicating Biden, with 9 weeks left before handing over to Trump, is complicating Putin's plans by allowing Ukraine to use missile against targets in Russia. Any restructuring of U.S. relation with China under Trump's must factor in concern of America's Asian partner, including India. An American deal with North Korea must have support from South Korea and Japan. Its engagement with Iran must consider the sensitivities of Israel and Gulf Arabs. But do expect Trump to move boldly away from the globalist dreams to bilateral deal making. Major powers are gearing up to adapt. Despite their rhetoric on building a new order, Putin and Xi are more than eager to cut deals with Trump. On its part, Delhi needs to temper its recent globalist exuberance and focus on beneficial bilateralism with the US that can strengthen India's comprehensive national power.